Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Aaron Judge is hitting home runs like they're going out of style, but is it enough for the New York Yankees this year? Also, CeeDee Lamb got the bag, and the Kansas City Chiefs just do not have any pitfalls to worry about this year. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The New York Yankees took care of Juan Soto's old team with Juan Soto in the lineup 5-2. And Aaron Judge got another hit, home, not a home run. So I guess, they should bench him. They should sit him because, that's what he's around here for. Brian McKeon from Locked On Yankees joins me now. Brian, I talked to our pal Jeff Snyder over at Locked On Dodgers yesterday about the season Shohei Ohtani is having. And I asked him if Major League Baseball was like the NFL or the NBA and they just gave one MVP trophy, who would get it? He gave the answer you would expect. But in the interest of fairness, we're getting toward an election. In the interest of fairness, I'm going to give you the chance to answer the same question. Who is the MVP of baseball this season?
Oh, well, I take the honor in you asking me that question and telling you that the host of Locked On Dodgers is wrong. The answer is Aaron Judge. Shohei Ohtani has gotten the basic unanimous MVP in the AL the last couple of years because he also pitched. He hasn't done that this year. Whether it's because of injury or not, he still has not pitched all year. What Aaron Judge is doing is something that we literally have not seen in upwards of 80 to 100 years in the game. That's the level of dominance you're watching. I know you mentioned at the start, he didn't hit a home run tonight. He made a Gold Glove play, robbed home run in left center field, and he got his 1,000th career hit. Just otherworldly. We've said it a million times on our show lately. It has become to the point where you're at a loss for words. There's no way of describing how good he's been. He's on pace for 63 home runs, 150 RBIs. It's otherworldly, and he's still in contention for the Triple Crown, believe it or not.
It wouldn't be very good radio if you guys were at a loss for words, but I know you and Stacey are never actually at a loss for words, of course, on Locked On Yankees. It's not just Aaron Judge, though. Like, if the Yankees are going to get to where they want to get to this season, it's going to take more than Aaron Judge. We've seen that before. He's been on this team. He's been healthy in other years, and they haven't been able to get to where they want to get to. But they lead Major League Baseball in point differential after, a season that didn't start the way that they wanted to. I want to ask you about that. What has really shifted here since the All-Star break?
It's been starting pitching, because their starting pitching was struggling so much in the month of June when they really went on their slump. Yeah. And it's picked up a lot. Adding Garrett Cole back into this rotation has meant a world to them. Carlos Rodon's been consistent again and been really good. You need that. And this team's going to ride on those guys playing well in the postseason. Every team in Major League Baseball, right, is going to live or die in the postseason based on what their starting pitching does. If the Yankees get production out of Garrett Cole, get production out of Carlos Rodon, and get good production out of their bullpen, they're going to have as good of a chance as anyone to win a World Series this year. If they don't get that, they're not going to win. It doesn't matter what Aaron Judge does out there. It doesn't matter what Juan Soto does out there. It really proves how much of a team sport baseball is. Because if your starting pitchers don't perform, you're not going to win.
Yeah, amazing what a difference having your ace out there makes. Like, if you don't have your best players, guess what? You're not going to play as well. Like, sometimes it really is that simple. You mentioned if they get those pitching performances, sometimes you don't. Now they have the lineup. And so I guess my question is, do you think this team is built to weather those storms? Because sometimes your starting pitching is not going to be as clean. Sometimes your hitting is going to go a little bit cold. So are they built to win in the postseason?
Yes, post September 1st. Once you get Jason Dominguez up, because they're not calling him up because they're trying to manipulate his service time. Once you get him up, you can take Verdugo out of the lineup. You can plug Dominguez in, who's another threat. It lengthens the lineup a lot. It gives guys like Anthony Volpe to relax, and it takes pressure off of a lot of players around the lineup. The deeper your lineup can be, the better, because you can't. It's weird how this year you've been able to depend on Soto and Judge in every single game to do something. But in reality, you can't depend on that, especially when the postseason comes, when you see the best pitchers and the best arms daily every single night. You need to be able to have guys that you need to be able to manufacture a run from lineup number 6 through 9. And they haven't been able to do that most of the season, truth be told. It's been Judge and Soto that have carried this team offensively. So you're going to need massive production out of the bottom of your lineup. You're not going to win playoff games without that. Are they built for it? I think so. Post September 1st.
That's why Jazz Chisholm has been such a big boost for them. Had a home run in this game tonight.
Oh yeah, he's been huge. It's funny too, because after the deadline, a lot of Yankee fans were left with a little bit of a sour taste in their mouth, thinking they didn't do much. They didn't do enough. They didn't make that big splash piece. But at the end of the day, that move wasn't there to be made. You know, the 2015 Yoenis Cespedes move wasn't there. So they had to do what they had to do. And getting Jazz Chisholm, you kind of felt a little, all right, you know, we'll see what it gives us. And in reality, Jazz Chisholm has been a godsend for the Yankees. He's been a stable, everyday third baseman besides the IL stint. But when he plays, he's hitting home runs. He's hitting for average. He's getting base hits. He is a huge catalyst for this team. And again, like I said earlier in the last answer, it lengthens your lineup. And you need that so badly this time of year.
Stay up to date on the New York Yankees all year long by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Yankees on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, the Dallas Cowboys and CeeDee Lamb are going to be seeing a lot of each other for a while longer. Before we get to that, the Packers got some Jordan Love insurance. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, plus you can cancel anytime. And with that $5 bet, how about an NFL future? FanDuel has special future bets called Future Fusions. They put together 2 future bets that increase potential payouts. Like, say you're really bullish on the Saints and really cooling on the Falcons. FanDuel has a bet for you. Take the Saints to win the NFC South and the Falcons to win less than 9 regular season games. FanDuel has that at plus 550. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Green Bay Packers are bringing in some quarterback competition. Okay, not really. But they did trade a 7th-round pick from Malik Willis, a former 3rd-round pick of the Tennessee Titans. This is mostly a reaction to Sean Clifford, a former 5th-round pick a year ago, and Michael Pratt, a 7th-round pick in this most recent draft, underperforming in preseason. And it started right away. While Jordan Love was holding out in Green Bay for that new contract, or holding in, I suppose, technically, these quarterbacks did not look good. And while it was all fun and games last year with Sean Clifford and Jordan Love, when we didn't know what the Packers were going to be, we didn't know what Jordan Love was going to be. This is a Super Bowl contender this year. They could not put a month or 6 weeks of Jordan Love being on the shelf in the hands of guys who are total unknowns. In this case, Malik Willis, elite arm talent, inconsistent decision-making accuracy, but also adds that rushing element, which is something that I love in a backup quarterback. Give it a different look. Just design a game plan for a game or two. If you're the Packers, just try and hold the fort while Jordan Love nurses a sore ankle or something like that. And this works. I like this for the Packers. Malik Willis has more talent than Sean Clifford or Michael Pratt. So you're developing that guy now. Sean Payton taking a risk, moving on from wide receiver Tim Patrick.
Tim Patrick won't be in the Denver Broncos uniform. All signs point to that.
Yeah, it's crazy to think, right? Because we just saw him have a great game against the Green Bay Packers. And I know the analogy has come up a couple times, like who could be this year's Albert Okwuegbunam, right? Who was kind of showcased in the preseason finale last year and then traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. Little did we know that it might be Tim Patrick, right? I mean, it's kind of wild to think about. It felt like all along, Sean Payton, the Broncos, getting that renewed contract done with Tim Patrick early in the offseason, it just felt as though, man, if he stayed healthy, he's going to be an asset to this team in some way, shape, or form. I didn't expect it to be in terms of bringing back more draft capital for the old war chest for George Payton, right? And so it's definitely going to be bittersweet, Cody. If the Broncos can trade Tim Patrick, we will feel a lot better about it. But in terms of what he leaves behind, I think that's kind of our point of discussion today, and especially our emphasis for as we open up the show. Like, is this too big of a risk for the Denver Broncos to be taking right now?
Catcher Danny Jansen made a crazy new record in baseball on Monday. He became the first player to ever play for two teams facing off in the same game. Jansen began the season catching for the Toronto Blue Jays, but was dealt at the trade deadline to the Boston Red Sox. On Monday, the Blue Jays and Red Sox resumed a rain-delayed game in which his at-bat was when the game was postponed initially in June. Are you following all this? There will be a test later. So he finished his at-bat as a Blue Jay and then walked over to the Red Sox dugout and joined his current team. Jansen said of the experience, "It's cool leaving a stamp like that on the game. It's interesting and it's strange, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to have that." And Sue Bird will forever be etched in Seattle history. Seattle Mariner Bruce Harrell announced that the city is renaming a section of the street leading up to the arena where the Seattle Storm play for legendary guard, where she called home as a member of the Seattle Storm for more than 2 decades. The new name, Sue Bird Court, appropriately. Bird joins longtime Seattle Mariners Edgar Martinez and Lenny Wilkins, a player, coach, and executive for the Seattle Supersonics, as Seattle athletes to be honored with street names. Regarding the moment, Bird said, "I didn't know it was possible. That's actually what makes this even more special." The Dallas Cowboys gave CeeDee Lamb the bag on Monday. Our Locked On Cowboys host jumped on a live reaction show to give us their take.
Landon, you and I, we waited all offseason for the Cowboys to have any type of movement, any kind of roster movement to cover on this show, and nothing. Crickets. And then on the day that they need to start cutting some players, they go ahead and sign CeeDee Lamb to one of the biggest non-wide receiver or non-quarterback contracts in NFL history. What are your thoughts on the signing?
I mean, deadlines make deals, man. It's like this was probably, you and I were, it's funny, you and I were having a conversation about trying to plan and schedule things out for this week and when to record and trying to timing of everything. And you and I both targeted that, hey, it's got to be in the next 24 to 48 hours, right? Because this is right around the time when you can get a deal done, get CeeDee Lamb in while you have this extra week, right? And then the week after this, you have game week, right? So you don't want him going through a kind of a ramp up period during game week. So I think this was kind of the last day of getting a deal done in time for him to have, not a full week, but like 4 days basically to get in here, kind of ramp up his conditioning. I mean, I'm sure he's in incredible shape. I mean, he looks, just the videos we see, he's in incredible shape, but to get him to that next level, to get him ready for a game, that he's got a full 4 days, and then you get him, folded into the offense and start working for Cleveland the following week.
I have so many thoughts here. The first is, I'm happy that it's done. I'm happy that it's done now. So at least he gets 2 full weeks of practice, probably more like a week. I think this is probably going to be a lot of conditioning, and then he's ready to go for the game plan next week. I'm glad it happened. The money part of it, it seemed like it was so obvious. I mean, we talked about it like the day Justin Jefferson signed. Justin Jefferson got $35 million a year. We felt like CeeDee was going to get something close to that number. I think on that show we predicted $34 million a year. And that's exactly what it came out to. So why was there such I understand why CeeDee wanted to wait, but why was there such a pause from the Cowboys or hesitancy from the Cowboys to do this deal when I think everybody knew what the numbers were going to be?
I think that the length of the contract was still up in the air until probably, the last week. And I think that's, there's been a lot of talk about the reporting of like, the numbers. And I think Jane Slater came out and kind of gave a summary of basically the negotiating and the numbers and everything. But I do think that the years are ultimately were the final kind of hurdle to get over. Outside of all of, obviously, the Ayuk situation still not being settled, and that kind of throwing some turmoil into this. But look, I mean, this was a situation with Dak, the last contract, right? Is that Dak wanted a shorter deal than the Joneses wanted to offer, because they like, and it's either or, right? It's like they want to have the option to either have a lower guaranteed amount, or they want to have that extra year on the deal in order to kind of move things around for cap flexibility, right? That's just the way that the Joneses operate, for good or bad, right? And ultimately the problem is that these last few big name contracts, these agents haven't been willing to kind of play ball in that.
Well, it's not just the Cowboys. It seems like across the league, you're seeing a lot of these shorter deals, because Justin Jefferson got a 4-year deal. I believe AJ Brown got a 3-year extension, so it's really like a 4-year deal. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown was the same. Jalen Waddle was the same. It seems like these agents are really pushing for, hey, we'll settle for a lower amount of money, right? Like, I'm not really a lower amount, 136. But in the past when the Cowboys would give out some of these big deals, whether it was like to Zeke or Terrence Steele or even like Trayvon Diggs, and they would try to get it to 5 or 6 years, or the Tyron Smith deal like a decade ago, which was a 10-year deal, right? Like, I just think those days are over.
Stay up to date on the Dallas Cowboys by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Cowboys on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. And of course, this is what we do on the Locked On Podcast Network. We react with the local angle instantly when breaking news happens. Coming up, the Chiefs. They got no pitfalls. Everyone is trying to figure out how the Chiefs will lose. Will the dynasty crumble? As Brian Peacock and Matt Williamson discussed on a recent episode of Peacock and Williamson, the Chiefs have no holes.
Taylor Swift could screw it up.
She'll get blamed, although they kind of got over that hump, because that should have hit them last year, but maybe it'll be the breakup this year that gets them. So it'll not be because of Taylor Swift; it'll be because they lost Taylor Swift. So maybe that's it.
I like the sound of that. Okay. I don't want to spend a lot of time on the Chiefs because they're really good, and I don't see a lot of pitfalls. I mean, their offensive tackles aren't phenomenal, but I mean, in fantasy, I'm investing in the Chiefs like crazy. I want Rashee Rice now. I want Worthy. I want all those guys.
Yeah, it looks like Rice not going to get suspended or anything. I love the addition of Worthy. I think it's going to open some things up, if not for him, but open other things up underneath a little bit. And it's not like you can't say, okay, Hollywood Brown's hurt. You got a rookie wide receiver that might be starting.
They got Kelsey and Mahomes, and they'll be all right.
It's better already than it was last year, even with a hurt Hollywood Brown, I think, at wide receiver. So that can't be it. Rookie left tackle protecting the most important asset in the league in Patrick Mahomes. So Kingsley Suamataia, maybe that's your pitfall. Does he miss a block and it gets Patrick Mahomes hurt? That's
what help him though.
I'm not worried about them developing another corner after L'Jarius Sneed leaving in free agency either.
No.
I mean, I trust in Steve Spagnuolo about as much as I trust in any coach in the NFL right now.
Yeah. I mean, they're maybe the best coach team with the best quarterback and plenty of star power. And I don't know what the odds are for them to win the West, but that's the easiest pick of all, Yeah,
it's too easy, and you're not allowed to go back to back to back. That's the pitfall. What's going to happen? I'm not sure, but it's not allowed to happen in the NFL. They're leaning on a couple of highly drafted rookies, but I like both those guys.
I really like what they did in the offseason. All
not much of a pitfall either.
Yeah,
this is the scary part for the rest of the NFL. The team that just won the title is probably the worst team Patrick Mahomes will ever play on, and they went back to back. Now, Travis Kelce, his future is not only going to be tied to Patrick Mahomes, because Patrick Mahomes will probably outplay Travis Kelce by at least 5 years, if not 10 or longer. So we'll see how Mahomes adjusts to all of that. But this is one of the best defenses in the league, and the infrastructure is in place to the point that they just said, L'Jarius Sneed, we don't need you, for a team predicated on pressure and coverage on the back end. Could they three-peat? Yeah, they could. Are they the favorites? Yes, they are. But there's a reason no one has done it in the modern era. It's really, really really hard. You need an immense amount of luck to win any title, even if you have the best player, which the Chiefs do, and arguably the best coach. You still have to get really, really, really lucky. So no, they don't have any holes, but all it takes is one injury, one Patrick Mahomes 6-week stretch, or one untimely injury in the postseason, or a couple balls that bounce the wrong way at the wrong time. That's why they play the game, and that's why we love it. And finally, Caitlin Clark made rookie history in the WNBA. What else is new? But this was a little different, a little more special. Clark tied Atlanta Dream guard Ryan Howard for the WNBA rookie record for three-pointers made in a season with 85. Guess who was guarding Caitlin Clark when she made the shot? Yeah, Ryan Howard. Think about that, breaking the record of the person trying to stop you. She handled it a lot more gracefully than I would have, I'll tell you that. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, will Jamar Chase be the next paid wide receiver? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.